Inside this beautiful neighborhood in Hendersonville, Tennessee, there is an unsolved mystery. It was a Sunday night going into a Monday morning, and 15-year-old Sebastian Rogers was supposed to be inside his home sleeping. His mother, Katie Proudfoot, says he went to bed at 9, but was making some noise around 10, including a thud sound. Katie told him to go to sleep. She went to bed around midnight. Then at 6 a.m., Katie woke up. She went to his room to get him ready for school, but Sebastian was gone. She searched the house and he was nowhere to be found. Sebastian's stepfather, Chris Proudfoot, was not home, and Sebastian's father, Seth Rogers, was at work about 45 minutes away. Police responded and began trying to figure out what happened. That was back on February 26th. And now, more than a month later, no sign of Sebastian, no sign of foul play, and no answers about what happened. Tonight, we'll take a look at some of the strange facts surrounding this case, like the lights in the neighborhood at 3 a.m. We'll also take a closer look at Sebastian and how his medical conditions and mental health could have played a role. And we'll focus on the water searches as we continue our investigation into the mysterious disappearance of Sebastian Rogers. I'm Benny Politan. Thank you for joining us tonight on Closing Arguments. I can't believe we're still here tonight in the search for a 15-year-old boy with autism, and there's zero leads. Zero leads in this case. How does that happen? And you take a step back and you think, well, what are the possibilities of where he is or what happened to this little boy? Now, he could have, he's 15 years old. He could have, on his own, gotten up and run away. But could a 15-year-old boy in the middle of the night get up, run away, and not leave evidence of anything? Could he be that stealth? Now, people often, sometimes people run away and they don't want to be found for whatever reason. And obviously that's a possibility here. But a 15-year-old boy pulling that off? 15-year-old boy with autism, able to just get out of the house, no one's going to find me, go wherever he's going, and somehow hiding and surviving? That's one possibility, right? Another possibility is somebody did something and something happened. But over and over again, we hear no evidence of foul play. And the real question I have tonight is, investigators, are they any closer to finding him? So there was another search, and we heard about this last week, a search of the area. So if they're searching that area, that means that, from my perspective, they don't know where he is, number one. They don't necessarily know what happened to him. Because they're telling us no evidence of foul play, and we're still searching and we're still finding nothing. So are they any closer tonight than they were on February 26th? And let's look at the other possibility here, right? That there is foul play without any evidence. Right? There's no evidence of foul play, but that doesn't mean that there wasn't foul play and they just have not found any evidence. Or it could be a combination of the two, that he decides to leave on his own and then something happens. But still, under all of these scenarios, there's not one video. There's not one witness coming forward. There's no forensic evidence. There's no evidence of anything happening anywhere. Like, this is baffling to me. That in 2024, someone just vanished. Where could he be? I think these water searches are crucial, and we're going to talk about that tonight. And you look at the neighborhood and you go around, and there's ponds everywhere. They're kind of murky. But, like, wouldn't there be evidence, like, leading to that pond or something? wherever it is, whether it's close or far. I mean, how far is he getting without shoes in the middle of the night? Like, really, where's he going? Where's a 15-year-old without shoes going? Why doesn't anyone know? Why doesn't anyone know? I'm asking a lot of questions tonight because there's all questions. There seemingly aren't answers anywhere. But why doesn't anyone know where he is? It's mind-boggling. In most of the cases that we've covered, someone's missing, there are certain clues. Oh, there's a ping off of a cell phone. There's a spotted at a rest stop. There is someone who's wanted. There is something that is left behind that, okay, the case isn't solved, but there's a lead, like there's a direction. Here, there's nothing, absolutely nothing. How is that possible, and why doesn't anyone know? Let me bring in our guest joining us tonight. Podcaster Pascal Beauboeuf is with us. You can watch him on YouTube at The Pascal Show. A lot of people have been. You've been talking a lot about this. Give me just your initial thoughts tonight about like this case, because there are other stories and cases that you cover as well. But this one, it's like nothing, Pascal.
Well, honored to be here, Vinny. But I got to be honest. This is getting thicker than a Snicker, and there still aren't any answers to all the questions, and even more and more questions keep coming up, and the answers are just sitting in the back. And I don't know what is going on. It is so crazy, this case, and we're turning left, we're turning right. It's been all over the place, and man, I just wish we had at least something, a little tiny bit of something that would lead us towards Sebastian's location, at least.
No evidence of foul play. No one is a suspect in anything. Yet, did something happen that would make him want to leave? Was there a reason for him to go somewhere? Is there evidence of him going anywhere? How do you get in and out of the house? What was his state of mind? These are so many questions, but let's start just by looking at a map. I want to look at a map so we have some idea of where all this is happening. It's a neighborhood. It's a nice neighborhood. There is a construction of another nice neighborhood taking place next door. You look on this map, there's a cemetery. There's various places where there are small bodies of water. There is a high school there as well. There's Long Hollow Pike, the road. On the other side of that road, there is a whole bunch of trees and brush and more bodies of water there. But at the end of the day, Pascal, when we begin here, looking at this neighborhood, that's the first thing. I always start with the neighborhood. And this is not the middle of nowhere. There's nice homes, like really nice homes in this neighborhood. If you're leaving in the middle of the night, where are you going? And if someone is coming to meet him in the middle of the night, I would think someone would have seen or heard, or some video somewhere would show us something.
Right. I mean, you'd think that at least some sort of Ring camera would have picked something up. Some security camera, something of some sort would have shown Sebastian moving around. I mean, of course, we've seen this flashlight video. It looks like fireflies in the dark. Now that's been debunked, saying that is a garbage truck, which I still am wondering how a garbage truck with a light on moves around in that kind of fashion. It just seems a little bit weird to me.
At 3 o'clock in the morning. Let me tell you,
Exactly.
If the garbage man shows up in my neighborhood 3 o'clock in the morning, everyone in the neighborhood's calling the next day saying, don't ever do that again, because it's going to wake everybody up.
No doubt. Absolutely. So that's the thing that doesn't make any sense. What's the activity that was going on in that area? And is there any depiction of that at all?
Let's do this. There's an audio recording that's been circulating online that sounds like it could be a radio transmission call from a canine handler during the search for Sebastian. The speaker references several places near Sebastian's home, like that construction site we've been talking about, the cemetery, and the retention pond. The link to the audio file was uploaded to Twitter by SF Investigates. It's unclear, though, where the recording came from originally. Let's take a listen.
Nice big track back up, going into the construction site over here, back towards the beach. The one behind you. It's awful muddy. Do you see any footprints or anything? You shouldn't have any shoes on. Thing is, this is all dry, hard packed. Outside report. LT, we're now headed back south towards the cemetery on the far end of the construction site. Oh boy, I can see. I do have some footprints over here. Right there where you're standing? Yeah, leading right over here to the retaining pond. No shoes, just footprints. The shoes that Max went straight into the pond. He literally dove into it.
And now we believe is the canine, Pascal, and we heard about this early on in the investigation, which would, make some sense. There's a scent that they're following towards the retention pond, but my understanding is they drained the retention pond and found nothing here.
Yeah, that's what I've learned as well. I mean, I remember in the very beginning of this whole case, they were saying that no scent. There was no scent at all. Now we're suddenly hearing about footprints and a scent leading into this retention pond, but then they even drained the pond. So what's going on here? What's the truth? Who's misleading who? And why are they withholding this information? Because I don't know which is the truth. And I think the public really wants to know. We, I think, deserve to know. The people that are out here volunteering time after time, day after day, looking for Sebastian, they deserve to know something that pertains to getting closer to finding Sebastian.
Now, you've spoken with Sebastian's father on your show several times. Let's take a listen to one of those interviews and discussions that you had involving this dog following some scent.
One dog followed a scent out into a construction site and then it disappeared. Could you maybe expand on that or explain a little bit more about that?
One of the dog handlers told me first day,
wow,
Monday, that the dog popped to a trail and they followed it and went all the way around and it ended in a construction site, but it ended. It's like there was nothing there.
Right. And that's a little odd,
Which
right?
leads me to believe that, well, if it ends, normally the scent ends when you stop traveling on foot. From my understanding, that would mean that he got into a car.
That's right. So now you listen to that, and again, they're saying that there's no evidence of foul play, but there's a scent leading to nothing, to absolutely nothing there, Pascal. I mean, you've got to deduce something from that. They haven't really talked about this a lot, but this would seem to be a potential lead or explanation as to what could have happened here if, in fact, he's leaving the house, heading towards that construction site, nothing in the water, but the scent disappears.
It's very weird. In that interview, Seth talks about footprints going in, or a scent going into this construction site, talks about the pond. But then he came on later in another show, days later, about a week later, says that had been debunked. We've heard it on other platforms as well, saying that law enforcement said that the scent that they are talking about was debunked. But then we're all still hearing from the Proudfoots about this scent leading into the pond. Yet again, like you said earlier, Vinny, that pond was drained. They walked that pond. So why are we still talking about this, the footprints, the scent leading into those areas? Like I said, something's just not mathing for me. Something just doesn't make any sense.
And have the Proudfoots come on your show?
No, I would love to have them on my show.
So we've invited them as well, waiting, and I know this is a difficult spot for everyone involved, and They've spoken to the Chronicles of Olivia. We spoke with her. They've spoken with Nancy Grace as well. A lot of people talking about that interview. But it seems that you've got Sebastian's parents are in totally different places, and I get it, they're not together, so obviously they don't see things the same way to begin with. But at this point, you hear a lot from Seth, you hear very little from the Proudfoots. Seth seems to still be on the ground there, involved in coordinating some searches near and around that construction site close to the home, and the Proudfoots seemingly are out of town.
Yeah, they're gone. It seems like they're on vacay, to be honest. But I will say this, just because they are somewhere else in their RV, away from that house, away from the search, is not an admission of guilt. But by the court of public opinion, optically, it looks really, really bad. I wish that they were here or there, doing whatever they can to find Sebastian, because again, it should be the three of them, boots on the ground, trying to find Sebastian. But this also gives us a little bit, it shines a little bit of a light on the relationship, the dynamics that are going on between the three of them. Something seems like something might be a little bit off between the three of them.
Well, I agree. And later on in the program, we're going to dig through some of the divorce documents, and you can tell that by reading those, you understand people get divorced for a reason and things are bad. But, you know, we had an experience, and maybe it was very unusual. Gabby Petito, her parents both got remarried, and together that group was a force, and they were all on the same page, looking
Absolutely.
for Gabby desperately. That's not the case here, and it could have to do with the dynamics of the divorce, everything else. But at the end of the day, there's not a unified approach to the search, to looking, to trying to find what happened here. And that is troubling. From people you've spoken to in all of this, do you get a sense that the Proudfoots were getting some flack, and it could have been potentially dangerous for them to hang around, that people were looking at them the wrong way? And we know sometimes how these stories and cases can take on a life of their own, and you start to feel a little bit of the pressure.
Well, I will say this. I mean, I get it that they may be getting death threats. They may be getting some threats of some sort. There may be a lot of pressure where everybody's giving them the hard side eye. I definitely get that. But at the end of the day, the main common goal should be universal. The focus on finding Sebastian. I don't know about you, okay, but as a family man, as someone who cares for my loved ones, if ever someone I loved went missing, I don't care how much ridicule. If I became the town's pariah, I wouldn't care. I'd still show up and do everything I could to find my son, to find my daughter, to find my loved one. So optically, again, this is very, very weird.
It's counter to what people believe in their gut, and it's counter to what I've seen from other parents in the past. You know, in all the stories, and unfortunately you've seen this before, where a child goes missing and you wonder how everyone reacts and acts in the aftermath. If the child is still missing and hasn't been found, why would you ever stop looking? How
Absolutely.
could you ever stop looking? Where are you looking? And that's not happening here, and that's troubling for a lot of folks. But at the end of the day, there's a child still missing, and the child needs to be found. The child could be in danger. No one knows. If you're the ones in the home, that he disappeared from, you know more than anyone about what could have happened here. And we're not necessarily seeing that. Go ahead.
If it's okay, one thing that I've realized about the Petito Schmidt family, regardless of their differences, they became a united front. They came together for the common goal of trying to find Gabby Petito and get justice for Gabby. We're not seeing this here. And what breaks my heart is that it should be a unified front. They all should be banding together. putting aside their differences and looking at the common goal, getting Sebastian home.
Absolutely. Pascal's going to stay with us. When we come back, we're going to take a closer look at Sebastian and bring in an expert, talk about some of the issues that we've uncovered that Sebastian was suffering from, how all of that could impact what happened to this 15-year-old. Plus, coming up next hour. In Oakland County, Michigan, the parents of the Oxford school shooter are sentenced for the deaths of the 4 victims shot by their son. Emotions running high in the courtroom as the victims' families spoke.
The lack of compassion that you've shown is outright disgusting. Not only did your son kill my daughter, but you both did as well.
We are underway in the trial of doomsday prophet Chad Daybell.
Prosecutors say they will seek the death penalty against him.
Investigators have recovered human remains at Chad Daybell's residence.
There's no way, Morgan. I could never come up with this.
His wife, Lori Vallow Daybell, has already been convicted.
Now, will her husband end up with the same fate?
It's just so hard to know where the truth ends.
It's the doomsday prophet, Chad Daybell, on trial.
Knew my son was missing, and I just started watching body language, listening to words coming out. Did I form an opinion? Yeah, I formed an opinion. I am only human. That again, once again, my son, something has happened to my son under her watch, and once again, she wasn't being an adult. She wasn't being a parent taking care of an autistic child.
That there are problems. It's obvious that there are problems here between Seth and Katie. That's why they got divorced. Now, they have a child together, a child with autism, and trying to understand these dynamics and how that could impact what happened to Sebastian, why he would suddenly vanish for whatever reason that it could impact. We dove into the divorce documents between Katie and Seth because sometimes you go in there, you can pull out information that may very well shed some more light on this case and Sebastian himself. Take a look on the screen here. In those divorce documents, our son suffers from a rare condition called 6q27 chromosomal deletion syndrome. Among the symptoms he suffers from are incidents of acting out, where he hits and bites himself out of frustration. He's been known to throw himself to the ground during these incidents. So what exactly is this 6q27? How could that impact a child? How could that impact a teenager who's 15 years old? We're going to dig into that right now. Still with me, podcaster Pascal Bobuff, and also joining us tonight in Los Angeles, California, clinical and forensic neuropsychologist, associate professor at Pepperdine University, and author of The New Rules of Attachment. Dr. Judy Ho is with us. Thank you so much. Dr. Judy Ho, let me ask you this. 6q27, what is that? What does that mean? And how could that impact a child and then a 15-year-old teenager and someone who's been a child of a divorce?
Well, Vinny, 6q27 deletion syndrome is a genetic condition. It's very rare, and it's caused by the deletion of a small piece of chromosome 6. So the deletion can vary in size. We don't know more details. And also what we know about this syndrome is that it's somewhat heterogeneous in presentation. So just depending on how much it's affecting the person, they could display a number of different behavioral difficulties. We saw on that court document that you just showed, Vinny, some of the ones that are specific to Sebastian. But some of the more common ones are some developmental delays in some area of perhaps language or motor skills or even social skills. Sometimes these individuals have a mild intellectual disability and some cognitive issues. Oftentimes they have communication difficulties, social challenges, understanding feelings of another person and being able to interact back and forth. Sometimes they'll have difficulty with impulse control and managing their anger and more negative emotions. And there is some research that suggests there may be an increased risk of autism disorder. So they're not one-to-one, but there may be a slight risk amplified based on this particular deletion syndrome.
Now, also in these documents, they describe a specific incident. And again, this is from papers filed by Seth. On August 11th, 2016, I had told him that day that if he cleaned his room, he could go swimming. I asked him if his room was clean, and he replied that it wasn't. I told him he couldn't go swimming until it was clean. Sebastian reacted by flying into a rage, screaming and hitting himself, biting himself, and trying to throw himself on the floor. I reached out to catch him before his head hit the door frame. So Dr. Judy Ho, knowing this, knowing that he is a child with autism, you kind of put that together. Now he's 15 years old, you know, going through those changes as well. He's in the middle of a situation where his mother and father don't really get along and don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. What are your thoughts about how all of that could play a role in why this child has vanished?
Well, Vinny, during the teenage years, we know that our young people are going through a number of different transitions. They're trying to figure out who they are, their identity, their place in life. They're grappling with issues of self-esteem and what they're going to do in the future. So that's already a stressful time for everyone. But now we have these additional stressors. Mom and dad possibly not getting along, trying to figure out, you know, how to essentially exist in the middle as you're seeing potential co-parenting difficulties. You know, individuals, even if they're not communicating them directly, they're still feeling the pressure. They're still feeling the difficulties from these parental arguments. And so if we think of this time as a potentially very stressful time, an additionally stressful time for Sebastian, there could have been a number of other things that have come up. Maybe his emotion regulation difficulties were even getting more challenging in face of these stressors. And so I just think that there's so much more that we have to uncover, because there's way more than meets the eye. I heard your conversation with Pascal earlier, and there's just a lot of things that are not really making sense and not adding up. And it just kind of feels like some of the information, as we mentioned before, there was a CPS call to the primary residence of the mother and the stepfather. Now, why was it that CPS call? Why was biological father Seth not notified of that until later, finding out on podcasts? There's something here that we don't know about, and we have so much more to find out.
Pascal, in your conversations with Sebastian's dad, Seth, did this come up? Did he talk a lot about the stress between his family, between him and Katie, and issues of custody and where this child was going to stay, and whether or not there was something happening around this time, some sort of a change in that relationship?
Well, honestly, the conversations that we've had on the show, a lot of it has just been him saying, hey, as soon as school is over, Sebastian's coming over to stay with me, and then he'll be with me from that point on. So there hasn't really been much detail about any type of rift or any type of tension between the three of them or anything of that sort. So the only part that became a moment of tension was when he found out about the CPS being called after the belt incident on Sebastian. And he was like, I just didn't know about any of that. I just found out through the podcast, like we just said a second ago. And he was absolutely shocked. He obviously was very upset, very moved, very perturbed over that information. But honestly, as far as talking about the dynamics of the relationship in before Sebastian disappeared, he didn't say much. He was fairly diplomatic about that, to be completely honest.
Now, Sebastian's father told Nancy Grace in an interview posted on YouTube this week that Sebastian had expressed on several occasions that he did not want to return to the home he shared with his mother and stepfather. Let's take a listen.
He's on multiple multiple occasions sit there and has told me he doesn't want to go back. And I've asked him, why don't you want to go back? And he wouldn't tell me. He didn't say why. He was just like, I just don't want to go back. And it's, you know, at that point in time, I'm just like, okay, well, maybe it's the freedom that he gets at my house.
Dr. Judy Ho, there's lots of reasons why a 15-year-old may want to stay with one parent over the other for whatever reason. But if that same child now disappears, I think this is something that becomes much more significant.
That's exactly right, Vinny. At some point or another, between these mixed households, child's going to show a preference over living in one household for another. A lot of the reasons are not nefarious. It's just something that they're going through. But like you said, putting all of the pieces together, the CPS call, the child disappearing, some potentially strange behaviors from mother and stepfather. Again, everybody grieves differently. Everybody deals with stress differently. But I think a lot of people are saying, well, why are you not staying close? Why are you not doing something more active in the search? Even if you are afraid of the social pressures around you, isn't the biggest priority to try to find your son and make sure that he's okay? I think it's just there's more and more things now that are adding up, Vinny, that's causing us to question exactly what was going on in this household right before he disappeared.
And Pascal, the other thing is happening, the more that, and you said this off the top, right? The deeper you go into the interpersonal relationships and issues that the adults in Sebastian's life have, it just seems like there's much more potential for there to be a reason for him to disappear, whether he disappears voluntarily or whether something happened that made him disappear. It just seems that there's conflict and there are things happening in the lives of these three adults that somehow impacted this child, because he did not just vanish for no reason.
Absolutely. Obviously, as you could see, there's a lot going on, as you just said. There's a lot going on inside this family, this blended family, if you will. And there could be many possibilities of him running off because he couldn't stand bouncing back and forth like a tennis ball from one household to the other. There is a possibility of him liking staying with his father more than staying with the Proudfoots. That's a possibility as well. But I guess that's still, those are all questions that are still up in the air that I think we're all pleading for an answer on.
Yeah, it's the old news cliche, more questions than answers. But it continues. And all the questions are really come down to one question, like, where is Sebastian? Pascal Beaubuff, make sure you check him out on YouTube after this show, right? You have to wait after this show. Go to Pascal, download, watch his live streams, awesome stuff. Dr. Judy Ho, great to see you. Make sure you grab the book. When we come back, folks, we're going to focus on some of the water searches. There's a lot of water in that area. Not big bodies of water, but enough. That's next.
Hint.
There is no evidence to support foul play is involved in the disappearance of Sebastian.
But at this point, you don't rule it out?
We're not ruling anything out.
All right, I get it. Not ruling it out. It seems they don't really have the leads, the evidence. They just concluded another search last Friday. So where are we in all this? I want to show you the map another time, because this is, again, this is significant in all of this in terms of whether or not there are clues, whether a scent was picked up, whether or not water searches are the key right now in this area, and how wide of a scope will you go? Chris Proudfoot was interviewed by Nancy Grace, and this is what he said. He said there have been dogs from all over the country that have come in and done searches and had scent hits in various locations. But I could say a certain percentage of them tend to go towards the same spot, which would have been a retention pond. At least 3 that I know for a fact that did hit on the retention pond. So what does that mean? Joining us tonight from the United Cajun Navy, Kevin LaFond, and in Salt Lake City, Utah, private investigator Jason Jensen. Great to have you both back. Kevin, let me start with you. The hits going towards the pond, that retention pond was drained, right?
It was, yes.
So what does it tell you? What does it tell you?
It tells us that there's something that...
One more time, I didn't hear you.
Well, obviously there's something... I'm sorry. Obviously, there's something that was there at some point in time. The thing with dogs is they can pick up a scent up to a year after the fact. So the age of that scent is unknown. Also, the wind conditions, water conditions, what's in the soil, what's around at the time. These all play a factor in it. But if multiple dog teams are having a hit in the same location, it's pointing in a direction.
And Kevin, how much water is in that area that you would say are bodies of water that need to be searched in a case like this?
Well, obviously anything close to the home, but also larger bodies of water that are nearby. We, in fact, brought out one of our sonar boats with side scanning and direct down scanning sonar, as well as specialized night lighting rigs to actually look through the water at night in various water colors so they can see through it. So those places need to be searched in more detail, and that's something that we weren't able to get to that phase, searching the larger bodies of water.
All right, Jason Jensen, we've heard the official word from investigators. A lot of times they hold back some information, but the fact that they went searching, an additional search, and came back and said they didn't find anything tells me they don't really have the leads here if they're continuing these searches. So what, from your perspective, if he's barefoot, it's the middle of the night, like where is he going?
Right, you have to ask, what would draw a 15-year-old boy out of his home at 3 o'clock in the morning in a neighborhood that's pitch black? So, and with his situation, his disability, he had a past experience with fire ants that he would refuse to go outdoors barefooted. So if he actually left on his own volition, barefooted, what would compel him to do that? And with no genuine leads, they really got to keep all their options open, everything from foul play to an accident. So searching bodies of water where it could be an accidental drowning makes sense. But when they're draining retention ponds and finding nothing, that's clearly not the situation.
I want to show everyone that the surveillance video again. This is from Channel 5, Scripps News Nashville. Tracked this down, Nick Barris, reporter. Home security footage from somewhere in the neighborhood. I'm looking at this. Here's what the sheriff's deputy told Nick Barris about his reaction to this video, what it means.
No evidentiary value?
It is of no evidentiary value.
Can you tell me what those lights are?
No.
Why?
Because the investigation remains ongoing.
And so it could play a role down the road depending on developments?
We don't know what we don't know. So yes, it could play a role.
I'm trying to decipher what he just said, Jason. Could you decipher what the investigator told us or didn't tell us about that?
It sounds like they're trying to keep that information close to the vest, and they don't want to reveal that because it might be significant down the road.
Okay, so you think they know what it is? They're just not saying?
I think they do. I mean, I've seen surveillance footage so many times. Me looking at that, believing it could be night vision, is not necessarily a light. I've had a bug fly up to my camera, and it looked like it was lit up. So if it is a flashlight and it appears to be a couple, at a distance apart from each other, that would, signal to me you got two people each walking with a flashlight. So if one person's ahead of another and they're like searching or they're in tandem, that might mean something. Going from the home where there was two adults, or maybe there was someone that came in and, abducted, which seems very highly unlikely in most situations. But we know from cases like John Benet Ramsey, alleged abductions can occur. So did someone go in the home? Because we know that mom said that she yelled over to Sebastian's room, hey, whatever's going on over there, stop it. Well, was that people in his room? We don't know. So if it was under an involuntary, exit, that would make sense why he would go barefooted.
And that thud, you're getting back to that thud. All right, Kevin LaFound, United Cajun Navy, where do you think the search should be headed today? where should the focus be, and how far and wide should this search go?
Well, it's the larger bodies of water that really need to be searched at this point. There's been a lot of activity on the ground. There's been a lot of activity sweeping through, and the larger bodies of water with the specialized equipment that can detect down and out under the water really needs to be ruled out. Because until you rule it out, it's in play.
Absolutely. Kevin LaFawn, United Cajun Navy, Private Investigator Jason Jensen, great to see you both. Thank you for helping us out. We'll speak again, I'm sure.